All right, so now that you've got MongoDB installed on your local system, the next step is to go ahead and use it, right? So let's head over to the mongodb.com website, and we're going to navigate to the documentation through the Docs tab, and then we're going to head over to Getting Started. And if you take a look over here, there's the MongoDB CRUD operations. I recommend that whenever you're exploring a new database system, the first thing to wrap your head around is how do you perform CRUD using that particular database. So we saw how we can create, read, update, and delete data using a SQL-based system such as SQLite in the last module. In this section, we're going to look at how we can do that using MongoDB on the command line. So this is the time to open up your Hyper terminal, and after the prompt, I'm going to type Mongodb, or some people call it Mongodb, and this will spin up our Mongo server when you hit enter. Once you see waiting for connections on port 27017, then you are ready to go. This is kind of similar to how we had localhost 3000, but in this case, we've got a local database that's being served up on this particular port. So now, if you go into Shell and New Tab, or if you take a look here at the shortcut, which on Mac is Command T, then we can open up a brand new terminal. And this is a different connection because if you notice here, while our MongoDB database is running, we actually don't see our prompt. We can't type something in here, and we can't, for example, CD over to the desktop over here because we don't have an active connection to our terminal. This terminal is connected to the MongoDB database. In our new terminal, however, we do now have a prompt, and we can now tap into the Mongo shell. And to do that, the keyword is Mongo without the D. And now if we hit enter and you see your prompt being changed to this angle bracket, then you are ready to use the Mongo shell. So the Mongo shell is basically just a way for us to be able to interact with our MongoDB databases on our local system using the command line. But before we create our brand new database, it's good practice to take a look at what databases we already have. How do we do that? Well, if at any point you get stuck and you're inside the Mongo shell, so you've got your little angle bracket showing there, you can always type help as a cry for help, and you will be able to get a helpful list of things that you can do while using the Mongo shell. So the one that I want to highlight to you is this one, which is the command show DBs. And this shows the names of the database that we currently have on our local system. So let's go ahead and try that out. Show DBs. Hit enter, and you can see that by default, when you install MongoDB, it comes preloaded with 3 databases: admin, config, and local. And you can see that all of them are taking up 0 gigabytes of space because they're completely empty. This is what it would look like if you have a brand new configuration of MongoDB. So let's go ahead and create our very first database. And to do that, all we have to do is type use, and then we specify the name of our database. So let's say that I wanted to create a database again for my shop. So I might call my database shopdb. I can write use space shopdb and hit enter. So now Mongo tells me that I've switched to the database that is called shopdb. But if I go back and I write show DBs, I don't see shopdb anywhere. Well, that's because for it to be listed, it has to have some content. So we first have to give it some data. We're now ready to tackle the C in CRUD and see how we can create data using MongoDB. If you ever want to know which database you're currently in, you can always type DB, hit enter, and it tells you that you're currently working within the shop database. So how do we create data in our database? This is the time to head back over to our documentation where we've got the MongoDB CRUD operations explained to us. So what we want to do is to create, and you can see that in order to create one entry or many entries into our database, the syntax looks something like this. We write db dot collection, and this collection is actually the name of a collection. And if that collection name doesn't currently exist, then by writing this line and by executing it, it will actually create that collection. And then we use a method such as insert one or insert many. And this is an example of how you would use this method. So for example, if you wanted a collection called users inside your database, you would say db.users.insert1, and inside the method insert1, you would pass over a JavaScript object, which will be the document. So it will have fields and it will have values. And this pretty much follows the key value pairs that we've been seeing in JavaScript objects. Let's take what we learned here and let's implement it for our shop DB. So let's say db dot, and the collection that we want to make is the one that's called products. Collections in MongoDB is kind of similar to tables in the SQL world. They are a collection of documents. And a document is simply just a single data record. So that would be a single row if you were using a SQL-based database. If this collection products doesn't currently exist in our database, then by executing this line of code, it will create that collection called products. And then we write another dot and we call the method insert1. And we open up a set of round brackets or parentheses. As the inputs for this method insert1, we get to insert a JavaScript object. The product that we want to insert is the pen product that we had previously. So in this case, it will have an ID of 1. It will have a name of, let's say, pen. And it will have a price of £1.20. This is all the data that I want to add to each record or each document inside my products collection. And when I hit enter, my data gets added to my database. And now I can use the keywords show collections, and it will show me all the collections that currently exist in the current database, which remember is shopDB. So I've only got one collection, which is called products. And in my products, I've only got one entry, which is my pen product. This is how easy it is to add data to our database using MongoDB. And if you look at the documentation, you can see that you can either insert one or you can insert many. And if you click on it, you can see the syntax as well as examples for each of these methods. MongoDB is extremely well documented, and pretty much anything you want to do with it is explained really well through the use of graphics and examples in their documentation. So now it's your turn to create a new document using the Mongo shell, and you're going to create the second product in our products collection, which is the pencil product. Pause the video now, and in your Mongo shell, create the second product. Okay, so we're going to follow the format that we had previously. We're going to tap into our database. We're going to look for the collection that's called products. And then we're going to, again, insert one product. And that product is going to be, again, a JavaScript object. And it's going to have an ID of 2 this time, because this is the second entry. And then it's going to have a name of pencil. And it will have a price of 0.80, so 80 cents or 80p. And when we hit enter, then we've created our second document. So now we have a database called shopDB that contains a single collection called products. And inside this collection, there's 2 documents, one with this data and another with this data.